I always believed the worst pain in life was losing someone you love, but I was wrong. The worst pain is discovering that the person you mourned, cried for, and buried in your heart was never dead at all. He was alive, living another life with another woman, while I inherited the wreckage he left behind. My name is Elena Hart, and this is how I found out my dead husband was never dead, only hiding. It started with a call on a rainy Monday morning. I was still wearing my robe, holding a lukewarm cup of tea, staring blankly at the gray sky. It had been 8 months since Daniel's accident, and yet grief lingered like an unwanted shadow. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Hart?" a stern voice asked. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "This is Officer Graham from the Financial Crimes Division. We need to discuss several outstanding accounts under your late husband's name. You are listed as the legal heir." I froze. Outstanding accounts? What are you talking about? "I'm afraid your husband left behind significant debts, bank loans, unpaid bills, and questionable transactions. Since you are the beneficiary, they now fall under your responsibility." My breath caught. There must be a mistake. "My husband never—" Officer Graham cut me off. "Ma'am, these aren't minor amounts." My hands trembled. "How much?" There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. "Over $740,000. My vision blurred. The room spun. I gripped the table to steady myself. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I'm afraid it's very real. Please come to the station today. Bring any documents you have." I ended the call, numb. For a long time, I simply stood there, staring at nothing, hearing only the echo of that number, $740,000. My husband had been a quiet man, an engineer. We lived simply. No signs of lavish spending, no hints of financial trouble. How could he have hidden something so huge? And why? The questions suffocated me. By noon, I was at the station. Officer Graham laid out folders filled with printed documents. Loan applications, overdue payments. Transactions linked to businesses I'd never heard of. Then he slid a single photograph toward me. It showed Daniel standing outside a bank, 2 weeks before the announcement of his death. I stared at the image, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. This can't be, but it was him. The same shoulders, the same familiar stance, the same briefcase. "Why is this dated after his death?" I whispered. "We're trying to determine that," Graham said, "but there's more. This morning, one of our investigators spotted a man matching your husband's description in Midtown. We retrieved security footage." My pulse raced. Graham turned his monitor toward me, pressed play. A grainy video appeared, but the figure was unmistakable. Daniel alive, walking casually into a cafe, and then a woman rushed into his arms, hugging him tightly. He kissed her forehead. They laughed, holding each other as if the world belonged to them. My heart cracked so violently I felt it physically. "I'm sorry you had to see that," the officer said quietly. I shook my head. "No, I need to see it. I was living with a lie. I need the truth now," he nodded. "We believe your husband may have faked his death to escape financial crimes." My throat tightened. "So he left me to carry the debt?" "Most likely." I felt sick. Betrayal wrapped around me like ice. "Do you know where he is now?" I asked. "We have an address, but we can't arrest him yet. We need more evidence," he hesitated. "However, you're legally allowed to confront him if you choose." A storm swirled inside me. Anger, grief, disbelief. Confront him? The man I buried in my heart? The man who left me drowning in debt? The man who hugged another woman while I slept alone every night? "Yes," I said. "Give me the address." When I stepped back into the rain-soaked street, I felt like a ghost walking among the living. My husband, the man whose memory I clung to, was a lie. And somewhere in the city, he was living comfortably with someone else while I faced financial ruin. I took a taxi to the address. A modest apartment building, neat, quiet, ordinary. My breath trembled as I climbed the stairs. My hand hovered over the door. My heart thundered. Then I heard it. Laughter. His laughter, the same sound I once loved. I swallowed the pain, lifted my hand and knocked. A moment later, the door opened, revealing him. Daniel. Alive, healthy. Startled, his eyes widened as if he'd seen a ghost. "Elena?" he whispered. I stared at him with a calm I didn't feel. "Hello, Daniel," I said softly. "Surprised to see your dead wife?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Then the woman's voice drifted from inside. "Honey, who is it?" She walked into view. Young, beautiful, smiling. That smile faded when she saw me. Daniel stepped forward nervously. Elena, I can explain. I lifted my chin. Oh, I insist that you do. And as the rain pounded behind me, I knew one thing for certain. This confrontation would not end the way he expected. Daniel stared at me like I was the ghost in this story, not him. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. The woman behind him looked between us with wide, confused eyes. Daniel, who is she? She asked softly. I stepped forward before he could speak. I'm his wife, her face drained of color. She stumbled back. What, wife? But you said, I know what he said, I cut in sharply. I'd love to hear the version he gave you. Daniel finally found his voice. Elena, please, let's talk inside. I'm not stepping into a life you built while I mourned you, I said coldly. You talk here. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it made me sick. Elena. Things got out of control. I had no choice. No choice? I echoed. You had the choice to leave me with nearly $1 million of debt? He flinched. I didn't want you involved. You involved me the second you faked your death, I snapped. The woman whispered, horrified. You told me your wife died in a car crash. He closed his eyes. Maya, please. So she doesn't even know? I said bitterly. You lied to her too? Maya looked like her world had shattered just as violently as mine. I turned my attention back to Daniel. Start talking. He took a shaky breath, leaning against the doorframe like the weight of his lies was finally pressing down on him. Elena, the debts, they weren't all mine. I saw your signature on every loan application. I was forced, he said quickly. You don't understand. I owed money to people you don't want to mess with. I crossed my arms, then explain it to me. He looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to appear. I got involved in a business deal with a man named Victor. He promised quick returns. I invested, and it went bad. I lost everything. So you borrowed money? I said coldly. Yes, but when I couldn't pay back, they threatened me. They said if I didn't disappear and stop cooperating with authorities, they would come after you. My breath caught at that. You expect me to believe this? I asked. It's the truth, Daniel insisted. I had to disappear. Faking my death was the only way to keep you safe. I stared at him, searching for the truth behind his eyes. Once I trusted those eyes blindly. Now I saw only shadows. And her? I jerked my chin toward Maya. Was she part of this grand plan to protect me? Daniel's shoulders slumped. She wasn't supposed to happen. Maya's voice trembled. You told me you were single and that your wife had passed away years ago. He winced. I let out a hollow laugh. You ran from debts, from criminals, from marriage, and straight into someone else's arms. Elena, please, he begged. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I whispered. In every possible way, the hallway fell silent. Maya slowly backed away, covering her mouth. I can't believe this. Daniel, how could you? He tried to reach for her, but she pulled away. I need to sit, she murmured, disappearing inside. When the door clicked behind her, it was just the two of us again, me and the man I thought I knew. I straightened my shoulders. So where do we go from here? Daniel swallowed hard. Elena, I want to fix this. I can turn myself in, negotiate, explain everything. Why didn't you do that 8 months ago? Because I panicked, he admitted, voice breaking. I didn't know what to do. I thought disappearing would solve everything, but the debts kept growing. And then when I met Maya, I felt like I got a second chance. The words sliced through me. So you replaced me, I said quietly. No. He stepped forward. You have to believe me, the last thing I wanted. I stepped back. That's the problem, Daniel. I don't believe you anymore. He looked desperate. Please, Elena. Just help me. I stared at him for a long, silent moment. What about me? I said finally. Where was my help when I was drowning in grief? When the police told me you had died? When I inherited the debts? When collectors threatened to take my home? Where were you? His face crumpled. I'm sorry. Sorry won't pay the debts you left me, I whispered. Sorry won't give back the months I spent crying over your grave. Elena. And sorry won't fix the crimes you committed. His lips trembled. I'm trying. No, I said. You're trying to save yourself, not us. Because us died the day you walked into that cafe and hugged another woman. He closed his eyes, pained. You should go, I said, turning away. He grabbed my wrist gently. Please, one more chance. I pulled free. Go to the police, Daniel. Turn yourself in, that's your only chance. He stood there, defeated, as I walked away. Down the hallway, down the stairs, back into the rain. I didn't look back, I couldn't. Because if I did, a part of me might still break. But I didn't know then. This confrontation was only the beginning. There were secrets deeper than debt, darker than betrayal, and deadlier than his lies. And soon, I would learn the truth he was too afraid to tell. Rain soaked through my jacket as I stepped outside the building, but I didn't care. My heartbeat echoed louder than the thunder in the sky. I had confronted Daniel. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. But instead of relief, a deeper, sharper unease started forming inside my chest. Something wasn't adding up. The debts, the disappearance, the lover, all terrible, all painful. But still, something felt incomplete. A missing piece, a detail buried intentionally. Daniel was many things, a liar, a coward, a cheat, but he was not stupid. If powerful men were after him, why was he living openly in the city? Why wasn't he hiding under a fake name, far away from law enforcement? Why stay in Midtown? Why keep the same face, the same habits? Why be this easy to find? As I walked toward the bus stop, my phone vibrated. Unknown number again. I hesitated, then answered. Elena Hart? A calm male voice asked. Yes. Who is this? This is Detective Rowan King. Financial Crimes Unit. My stomach tightened. Yes? We need to speak with you immediately. It's about your husband, your alive husband. The emphasis on alive felt like a blade twisting into my ribs. I already confronted Daniel, I said, exhausted. I know he faked his death. That's not the main issue anymore, Detective King said. There's something you need to see. Come to the station as soon as possible. My pulse spiked. What is it? Silence. Then he said only 2 words. It's urgent. He hung up. A cold shiver ran through me. Something bigger was happening. Something Daniel wasn't telling me. Something worse than debt, worse than betrayal, worse than faking his own death. I headed straight to the station. Detective King was waiting in a small conference room with a laptop and several sealed folders. His expression was serious, too serious. Mrs. Hart, he began, I'm going to need you to stay calm. Some of what I'm about to show you may be difficult. A humorless laugh escaped me. Detective, I think I've already reached my limit for difficult. He didn't smile. Instead, he opened the laptop and clicked a file. A video began to play. Grainy footage, a dark warehouse, several men, an exchange of envelopes. And there, standing clearly in the center, was Daniel. Alive, confident, speaking fluently with men who looked anything but friendly. I frowned. This doesn't look like someone forced or threatened. Detective King nodded, because he wasn't. These men are part of a criminal laundering ring. We've been trying to track their financial routes for months. I blinked. What does that have to do with me? He turned to me slowly. Elena, your husband wasn't a victim. A chill crawled up my spine. He was one of the facilitators. My breath caught. No, that's impossible. Daniel was quiet, polite, soft-spoken. The detective interrupted. His type always is. They hide in plain sight, I shook my head. He told me he got involved because of a failed investment. That's the story he gives everyone, the detective said. But the truth is, Daniel was laundering money through several shell companies, all under his control. He flipped open a folder. Inside were documents, signatures, transactions, all unmistakably in Daniel's handwriting. He wasn't forced into debt, Detective King continued. He created the debts intentionally to funnel money. When things went wrong and the ring collapsed, he faked his death to escape investigation. My stomach twisted violently. He left me the debts, I whispered. Why me? Because, the detective said, looking at me squarely, you were the perfect cover. A clean financial record, a loyal wife, someone who wouldn't question his long work hours or unexplained absences. You were his shield, Elena. The room blurred. He used you, Detective King finished. Used me, lied to me, manipulated me, and when he needed an exit, he left me drowning in the mess he created. I sat in silence, tears burning behind my eyes. But the detective wasn't finished. He played another video from earlier that day. It was footage of Daniel at a bank, withdrawing a large sum of money. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a man wearing a dark jacket and a scar over his left eye. Who is that? I asked. Detective King looked grave. That's Victor. The man Daniel claimed was threatening him. Daniel told me Victor forced him into debt. Detective King nodded, yes. And Victor says Daniel owes him money, not because of threats or loans, but because Daniel stole from him. My mouth fell open. Stole? Detective King folded his hands. Elena, your husband wasn't running from danger. He was running from consequences. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Everything he told me, every word, was a lie. Detective King leaned forward. I need to ask you something important. I forced myself to meet his eyes. Do you know where he might go next? If he's planning to flee again? I shook my head slowly. No, but then an image flashed in my mind, a memory. 3 years ago, on our anniversary, Daniel said something strange. If anything ever happened to me, he had said, I'd want my ashes scattered near the cabin. Peaceful place to disappear, right? Disappear. My breath caught the cabin. A small wooden getaway his family used to own. Off-grid, remote. Untraceable. I looked up sharply. I know where he might be going. Detective King stood immediately. Where? I told him. His eyes darkened. Then we need to move fast. He reached for his radio. Because now, Daniel wasn't just a liar. He was a fugitive. And I, the woman he betrayed, was the one who could help bring him down. What I didn't know was that the cabin held a secret bigger than all his lies combined. A secret that would put my life in danger. I stood frozen in that dim office, the stale smell of paper and dust circling me like ghosts of forgotten promises. Rahul, the accountant who had once handled my husband's urgent work matters, sat across from me, trembling. His face had turned pale the moment I asked the question that sliced through the room like a blade. Who is Victor Mitchell? He swallowed hard. His fingers twitched. His eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape. I leaned forward. My voice was steady, cold. I had nothing left to lose. Tell me the truth, I said, all of it. His breath shook as he exhaled. Ma'am, your husband, he wasn't who he said he was. The world tilted. What does that mean? I whispered. Rahul wiped his forehead, looked down at his hands, and finally spoke. Your husband, his real name wasn't Daniel Clark. He changed it 6 years ago. Before that, he went by Victor Mitchell. And before that, Victor had a criminal record. Fraud, embezzlement, identity manipulation. He was involved with some very dangerous people. My blood ran cold. I gripped the edge of the table. No, I said. Daniel wasn't like that. He was, Ma'am, I'm sorry, he interrupted softly. But the man you married, he created that version of himself. For you, for a new start. But his past finally caught up. A storm of emotions crashed inside me. Confusion, anger, betrayal, disbelief. If Daniel, Victor, had been a criminal, if he had debts, if he had enemies, then what did that mean about his death? And why had I inherited those debts? My voice cracked. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't he tell me? Rahul pushed a small folder toward me. Inside were photocopies of documents, court records, old passport photos, a mugshot of the man I married, a punch to the heart, a slap to reality. He didn't want you involved, Rahul said, eyes filled with pity. He wanted you safe. Safe? Was that what this was? Abandoning me, leaving me with debts, disappearing into someone else's arms? I clenched my jaw. If Daniel wanted me safe, he failed miserably. Who is the woman he was with? My voice came out rough, almost unrecognizable. Rahul hesitated. I don't know everything, but I know she's connected to his old life. Her name is Celeste Ward, and she was once his partner. I felt my heart stop. Partner? As in business? I asked, though dread twisted the answer inside me before he spoke. He shook his head, as in everything. Business. Crime. Relationship? The room fell silent. My pulse thundered in my ears. My world, already fractured, shattered completely. The man I cried over, grieved for, begged God to bring justice to, was alive, with another woman, a woman who knew the darkness he came from. A woman he returned to, but something still didn't add up. Why fake his death, I asked. Why leave me everything? Why leave me the debts? Rahul's expression darkened. I think he didn't mean for you to get those debts. Someone forced the legal transfer. Someone who wanted his loose ends cleaned up. And Celeste might not be who you think she is either. What does that mean? Rahul pulled out another document, a bank transaction printout. Large withdrawals, transfers. Timing too perfect. Your husband was planning to disappear permanently. But before he left, someone betrayed him. Someone else got involved. Fear crept into my bones. My hands trembled. Who? I whispered. Rahul's answer was a whisper carved from fear. A man named Everett Kane. The name meant nothing to me, yet everything in Rahul's eyes screamed danger. He's connected to Victor's old circle, he continued. If your husband is alive, he's running from Everett, or working for him, or hiding from both Everett and Celeste. I sat back, breathless. My husband wasn't dead. My husband wasn't innocent. My husband wasn't safe. He was trapped in a web of crime, running from shadows I never even knew existed. And somehow I had become a pawn, a liability, a target. Rahul leaned forward urgently. Ma'am, whatever you do, don't confront Victor. Don't search for him. These people don't care who gets hurt. But it was too late for that. Because in my bag was the photograph I'd taken earlier that day. The one showing my dead husband hugging his lover behind the abandoned warehouse. He didn't look scared. He didn't look hunted. He didn't look forced. He looked happy. And that lit something inside me. A fire I didn't know I carried. A fire that burned away the confusion, the grief, the helplessness. He had chosen betrayal. He had chosen lies. He had chosen her. I stood up slowly. Thank you for your honesty, Rahul, I said quietly. But I'm not done, not until I know everything. He grabbed my arm, fear in his eyes. You don't understand, they're dangerous. They don't leave loose ends alive. I pulled my hand free. Then they shouldn't have underestimated the wrong woman. I walked out of his office, the cool air hitting my face like a promise. This wasn't just about debts anymore, or lies, or heartbreak. This was about truth, about justice. And now I wasn't a grieving widow. I was a woman on a mission to find the man who betrayed me and uncover the reason behind everything he destroyed. The past wasn't done with Daniel Clark or Victor Mitchell, and now neither was I. The cabin was exactly as I remembered from years ago, remote, hidden among the dense pines, a place Daniel had always called peaceful. I parked my car a few hundred meters away, heart racing. The wind carried a chill, rustling the fallen leaves like whispers of warning. My hand shook as I gripped the photo of him hugging Celeste. I had rehearsed my confrontation 100 times in my head, but nothing could prepare me for what I was about to see. As I crept closer, I saw the cabin door open. Daniel stepped out, wearing a jacket that concealed most of his features, his face hardened, guarded. And behind him, just as the videos and photographs had shown, was Celeste. She smiled when she saw him, a smile that spoke of intimacy and shared secrets I would never have been part of. I took a deep breath. Daniel. He froze. The words seemed to echo in the quiet forest. Celeste's smile faltered. She looked at him puzzled. Elena? Daniel's voice was almost a whisper. Shock, fear, and something else I couldn't name. You faked your death, I said steadily. You left me with debt, grief, and lies. And now I find you here, living your life while I suffered. He stepped forward. Elena, please, it's not what you think. I laughed bitterly, the sound cutting through the forest air. Not what I think? Daniel, I saw you with her. I know about the debts, the lies, everything. Don't you dare lie to me again. Celeste glanced at him, alarmed. Daniel, who is she? I'll explain later, he said, but I cut him off. No, you'll explain now, every detail, every lie, every secret. I deserve the truth. I need the truth. For the first time, Daniel looked small, vulnerable. His control, his arrogance, all stripped away by the weight of his actions. He exhaled, his shoulders sagging, and motioned for me to sit on the old wooden steps of the cabin. Fine, he said. I'll tell you. But you have to listen. I nodded silently, forcing myself to remain calm. I got involved with Victor's organization years ago, he began. At first it was just business, but Victor, he's dangerous. He manipulates everyone around him, uses everyone, and if you cross him, there's no coming back. I tried to get out, Elena, I really did. But leaving Victor meant exposing myself to threats. Threats to you, to your family, to anyone I cared about. I faked my death to protect you from him. That was the plan. I stared at him, trying to understand the man I thought I knew. And Celeste? I asked. Was she part of this too? He looked down, shame crossing his features. Celeste wasn't supposed to happen. She found me while I was in hiding. She knew about my past. She was part of Victor's world. I didn't want her, but I didn't know how to get away without putting you at risk. I thought hiding, leaving debts behind, keeping you safe from my life. That would protect you. I was wrong. I felt bile rise in my throat. Wrong? Daniel, You left me to suffer while you ran into another woman's arms. You left me to carry your sins. He flinched. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I never wanted you hurt. I shook my head. You don't get to define what hurt is. You abandoned me. You lied to me. You destroyed everything we built. He looked crushed. I never thought it would come to this. I thought disappearing would be enough. I stood, my chest tight with anger and betrayal. Disappear? You left me to pay for your crimes. You left me to bury your lies. You left me for dead, Daniel. He didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Celeste, who was quietly observing everything, guilt etched on her face. She finally spoke. I didn't know she was still alive, she admitted softly. I never meant for this to happen. I looked at her. You were part of it too. You didn't care about the woman he abandoned. You didn't care about the life he destroyed. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. I thought he loved me. I thought he was free from the past. I didn't know the truth. I turned my gaze back to Daniel. I don't want excuses. I want accountability. Every debt, every lie, every betrayal, you face the consequences. Not me, he nodded slowly. I know, I'll turn myself in. I'll make it right. Somehow. I'll take responsibility for everything. I breathed in deeply, the cold forest air filling my lungs. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control returning. Not over him, not over Victor or Celeste, but over myself. I can't undo the past, I said. I can't bring back what you stole from me, but I can choose what happens next. And I choose that I don't let you define my life anymore. He looked at me with something resembling fear and admiration. Elena, I never wanted you to become like this, so strong, so unbreakable. I smiled faintly, though it didn't reach my eyes. You underestimated me, Daniel. That was your greatest mistake. I turned and walked away from the cabin, leaving Daniel and Celeste behind, along with the lies, the debts, and the betrayal. Behind me, I could hear the faint echo of their voices, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I felt the weight of his betrayal lift slightly from my shoulders. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was free. I had survived his lies, his secrets, and his double life, and I would survive anything else the world threw at me, stronger, wiser, and unbroken. The cabin disappeared behind the trees as I walked down the forest path. Rain fell softly, washing away the remnants of my grief, leaving behind clarity, strength, and a fierce determination. Daniel's life, his lies, his debts, they were no longer mine to bear. Mine was my own life, my own choices, and my own freedom. And that freedom finally felt like victory.